Obviously, I need something a little bit firmer. The pumpkin started bleeding out into the jeans. Okay, sword dude and dudettes, we are back looking at textiles. So these are the blue jeans that I had previously tested using the Flamberge blade. Spoiler alert, that's going to make a reappearance. So I have it stuffed with some pumpkin. So I have this kind of badonkadonk hanging out here on a pole, and hopefully it's a little bit more firm. So what happened last time is my rig had some wet cardboard inside, and that wasn't proving enough resistance. So I'd only get like one whack and then it would fall apart. But hopefully this time we'll be able to whack it with a couple different swords. And this is really more about testing what type of protection something like denim is going to offer against sword strikes. So I'm initially going to start not hitting particularly hard because I want to see if we just do a light strike, what type of effect, if any, this is going to have with a kind of human simulant underneath. So let's see what we've got. We're going to use several different swords today. All of them are razor sharp. We're going to start with this particular straight-edged blade, a double-edged Jian. This one, the Longquan Jian from LK Chen. And even though this is a light sword, we're going to be testing it again against the textile to see how it resists. Because against an unarmored target like this, even if I'm performing a relatively light cut, it's just going to very easily go all the way through it. And so I want to see what, if any, sort of effect the jeans is going to have against that. Okay, so it's a little difficult to see, but I have two pumpkins here. One, two. Inside I have a bamboo that's holding them up. I'm going to try a light target against the top pumpkin, and it's possible that the bamboo will eventually snap and the pumpkins are going to tumble out, and it should be hilarious. So initially, I'm just going to try a light flat strike against the top pumpkin, and we'll see what type of... It's going to be flat. I'm not going to try and push or pull or slice with this particular sword. So let's just see what a kind of light, medium-powered strike does against Mr. Pumpkin. Well, my poor bamboo. All right. Obviously, I need something a little bit firmer. And so we made some pumpkin juice, but this is actually kind of interesting because you can see what happened here. The sword hit and struck with enough force that it wounded the pumpkin underneath. The jeans actually did their job properly and followed, it basically wrapped around the edge of the blade, but there was still enough force that it dug deeply into the pumpkin underneath. So the pumpkin started bleeding out into the jeans, which is perhaps accurate. We have accounts from the historical record of textiles like silk, which are very, very strong, sometimes being wrapped around things like spearheads or arrowheads and getting stuck in the wound, and perhaps aiding in pulling out some of the arrowhead. So that seems to be what happened here. So I cut into the pumpkin, but I didn't seem to actually ever break into the jeans. And now that we've taken off the jeans, here is the wound that that sword did against the pumpkin. So, yeah, it's going to hurt. Okay, I have improved my rig. This time we're just using pipe on the inside. I'm going to give it one more hit, and then maybe we'll try and stab it with the gin. Well, that time it certainly opened up. And not only did it tear quite a bit of the pants, but it cut into the pumpkin maybe... here, I'll bring over the camera. I'm not even sure how deep. So it's going to be difficult to say. It's probably going to be like 4 or 5 centimeters. So maybe like 1.5 inches, 2 inches into the top of the pumpkin. So ouch. And just for completeness sake, let's see if it offers any more resistance to a simple thrust. Oh, I missed. Oh, nope. To be honest, I couldn't really tell the difference going through the jeans. Just one layer of denim wasn't really enough. So I'm going to fold over. So now I have 3 layers of denim on top, and I'm going to hit it again rather hard. I really thought we were going to have to step it up to different types of sword, but let that be a lesson for someone who's interested in just even a straight double-edged sword. If you have a keen edge, and again, this is a very keen edge, textile is not going to protect you. And again, this is a testament to the previous video where the target wasn't able to resist my strikes very much. It was perhaps too floppy. Every time I hit it, it just ran away. Whereas this one is more like if you're striking a leg where the leg isn't going to be able to move and the jeans just kind of stay there. If you give that leg a strike, even this is 3 layers of jeans. So even if you were wearing 2 sets of jeans, that is not protecting you from a simple strike. Okay, now we have the Katzbalger. Now my pumpkin has slid down, but you can still see that it's right there. Now last time this was able to very quickly open up a wound, and I think what happened is that each of these ridges, the point is a little thicker and then the dips are a little thinner. So this part is more cutty and this part is more reinforced. And I believe what's happening is when we strike, even though all of it is sharp, each of these points concentrates the force and basically is acting as a little thrusting point. So it's kind of like getting hit when you're just doing a flat cut instead of a draw cut or a push cut, is basically like getting hit with almost like a bunch of small daggers, which is very good for breaking up something like textile. Let's see what happens. Simple strike against jeans. Okay, so first time it deformed and it didn't quite open up, but I can see that it's wounded the pumpkin underneath. So we pushed into the pumpkin, but didn't open it up. We'll hit a little bit harder. My pumpkin is losing integrity because I'm hitting it so hard. All right. Now, here, I'm going to leave that there and bring the camera in. I want you to see how it's pulled the sword into the wound. So it's definitely wounded the pumpkin, but I don't know yet if it's actually broken the jeans. So it's pulled the fabric into the wound. Let's see. Nope, it didn't. You can see you have this kind of scalloped mark from where it's got a kind of scalloped mark from where it went into the wound, but it hasn't opened it up yet. So I'm going to have to ramp it up. I was striking with about 40% force. I'm going to strike it a little harder this time. I have to find a piece of the pumpkin that's not been wounded. Yeah, I'm going to turn everything. All right, so right about there. I'm going to hit it pretty hard. And again, you can see that it's clubbed the pumpkin. So it is, because this is hitting more massively, it has a lot more inertia behind it than the Jian. So it's at this part of the blade, it's carrying more weight than the lighter Jian, but it's not as sharp, So it's stoving in the pumpkin, but boop, still hasn't broken through the textile. This time I'm going to try a little bit of a draw cut and see if that makes a difference. Yeah, it's starting to make a difference. Unfortunately, the pumpkin is losing integrity. Let me try a bit of the pumpkin that's not broken yet. So right over here, another draw cut. There we go. So that drawing action allowed it to stick one of the bumps in and then just carve its way through the fabric. And again, it's reducing the poor pumpkin underneath to pulp. All right, just like before, I now have multiple layers of fabric. I want to see if it can do the same thing and punch its way into the pumpkin. I'm going to try a big hit. Now that's kind of interesting. It punched a little hole through multiple pieces of fabric. So obviously it found one place where it could sink in, and it's punched a single hole, again, kind of like a dagger, through. But the rest of it has not. Try the same thing again. Come on, pumpkin. Hold in there. You got a couple more strikes. Come on, Katzbalger. All right, so look at how damaging it's reducing the poor pumpkin to just pumpkin juice. And again, it pushed multiple layers deep inside the pumpkin wound, but it hasn't caused them to break. I'll try a draw cut again. Hopefully the pumpkin doesn't just completely fall off the stand. Nothing on that one. I'll try another draw cut. It's making little gouges, but not significantly. All right. Now, what about this nice round spatulate tip here? This spatula tip is quite sharp, and oftentimes people say that, if it's a rounded tip, it won't thrust well. In my experience, as long as it's sharp, it'll still go into light targets pretty easily. This is still, I consider, a light target and only lightly armored. Will the denim make a difference? Ah, it did. In that case, it resisted the spatula tip. We'll try one more time. Yeah, it is not going through. Whereas the Jian basically showed no difference whatsoever, and it does have a little bit of a tip so that it can break through the fabric. This time, this rounded tip is already meeting enough resistance. And again, if I push really, really hard, it'll probably go through. But it's meeting enough resistance that it's just spinning the pumpkin around and knocking everything higgledy-piggledy. I'll try going against the grain. I'm sure that'll be even worse. Yeah. Okay, so what would be a sharp tip, and again, if I just expose this and I hit the pumpkin straight on, and it has no problem going straight into the pumpkin, against the fabric, this tip is already having a very difficult time going through. Very interesting. So my rig wasn't perfect, and we need to probably experiment a little bit more with this idea. But right now, keenness definitely seems to be the name of the game when it comes through cutting through textile. And again, denim is a harder type of textile. This is reinforced by what guys like Scal have showed in the past, where you're trying to cut through gambeson, and regardless of what type of blade profile, The most important thing is making sure that the edge is sharp enough to be able to make it through. All right, guys, let's see about chopping some more pumpkins at a different time. Till next time.